I actually shifted the microphone over there so that Kelvin could have one.
Yeah.
But that means when I need to
Yeah,
speak,
I'll have to move it. So let me move my glasses then, because otherwise that's going to get in the way. Right. Good afternoon. Oh, God, sorry. Everything's falling apart. My pen's just decided to fall apart as well. Right, as if I don't need it. Okay, good evening, everyone. Good afternoon, beg your pardon, everyone. Oh, gosh, sorry. I don't know which one to have open. Oh, God. Sorry. So welcome to Adult Social Care Committee, 24th of March 2025. Welcome back, everybody. Nice to see you again. As we work through the meeting, the information will be displayed, i.e. the agenda and reports on the screens in the council, dotted around the council chamber. So, agenda item 1, we just do our normal welcomes, introductions and safety information. So, I mean, I know we all know each other, but please can I ask for the committee to introduce themselves? If we start with Councillor Martin and we work our way around.
Hi, Councillor Martin, Labour Councillor for Froome Vale.
Councillor Mohammed McGowie, Cotton Ward, Green.
Councillor Calistrone, Clifton Down, Green.
Tim White, Ashley Down, Green.
Councillor Mark Weston, Henry and Brentry, Conservative.
Over to the bench, over this side.
Good afternoon, Pete Franklin, Strategic Intelligence and Performance Advisor.
Tom Wilson, Interim Deputy Director of Commissioning.
It's Kelvin Blake, Labour Councillor for Hillfields and Vice Chair of this committee.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Hugh Evans, Exec Director, Adults and Communities, Bristol City Council.
Bronwyn Faulkner, Policy Committee Officer.
And my name is Lorraine Francis, Chair of Adult Social Care Committee. Thanks, everybody. Just to point out our emergency evacuation procedures, we have no expected fire alarm today, so in the event of the alarm sounding, please leave the room calmly into the lobby, out through the main door and down the steps to the right, turning towards the cathedral, and the assembly point is in front of the actual cathedral. We will take a short 5-minute comfort break on the hour. Okay, so agenda item 2. So, Bronwyn, do we have any apologies?
We do. We have an apology from Councillor Johnson and from Councillor Clark.
What about Toby? Yeah. Thank you. So, there's no further apologies. Okay, so let's move on to agenda item 3, which is declarations of interest. So can I ask committee members if you have any interest to declare in relation to the items on this agenda?
Yeah, I've got one. I'm the paid chair of West of England Friends Housing Association, which provides residential care. So I should abscond, whatever the term is, for that item.
Thank you, Councillor White. Anyone else? Nope. Thank you.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry.
Yes, just chair of Second Step, sort of not mentioned directly, but Second Step are in receipt of funding through adult social care, and I'm a non-exec on North Bristol NHS Trust, which deals with sort of discharge, and we do some joint work with that trust. So thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so I'm going to assume that everybody has read the committee minutes from committee held on the 27th of January 2025. Can I ask if there's any objections to the minutes, any corrections? Can I ask for a seconder to confirm that the minutes are correct? Thank you, Councillor Martin. Okay. Right, moving on. We're moving swiftly to agenda item number 5, which is my announcements. So, So what do I want to talk about today? I do have a couple of things written down. So, an urgent officer decision notice was put in place to secure the local authority better care grant. So we're going to be discussing that today and the reason why had to happen. So that will come up, and hopefully you've read the information that's already been provided. So in regards to the adult social care budget, as you know, the budget was approved the annual budget for 25-26 was approved on the 25th of February at full council. So I guess it was quite a challenging budget meeting, but we did come through successfully as far as the council having a balanced budget. But we do need to recognise that as we move forward, we will see challenges for the next period because we still haven't got a comprehensive sort of what do I want to say? We're still struggling to manage the budget, and things will only get probably worse as we move forward. But we will continue to lobby, and we did. On that note, I mean, Hugh might want to say a few things because he was the person doing the presentation. But we recently, about 3 weeks ago, did go to Parliament and gave evidence at the cross-party health and social care inquiry in regards to the pending adult social care reform. And the headline was the cost of inaction. And what was really, I don't want to say positive about the process, was that Bristol was the only local authority to give presentation on that. So, and we were only one of 3 of the 27 local authorities whose actual review notes, what do I want to call it? Our presentation was the only, that was our evidence. Oh Lord, I'm having one of them days, I do beg your pardon. Our evidence was the only one of 3 that was actually uploaded onto Westminster website, and we were the only people that actually gave evidence. So that just tells you the quality of our evidence. So I'm just going to get Hugh to say a couple of words because he actually was the person that answered all the difficult questions.
Thanks, Lorraine. Maybe turn that off and then it won't feed back. Yeah, it was an interesting, my first experience of that nature. If anybody wants to view the gory details, there is a link to the Parliament Channel broadcast of it, and you can watch it in its entirety. I didn't realise that I didn't pronounce the T in community quite as obviously as I do. Community. It's community is the word, but obviously that's not how I say it. It's glottal stops, isn't it? All the while, I'm not even from the south. Anyway, yes, so it was an interesting experience. It's worth noting, as Lorraine said, that we were one of only 2 or 3 to have our written evidence published. And aside from the president of ADAS, the Association of Directors of Adult Social Services, who is the Melanie Williams, who's the Nottinghamshire director, we were the only rank and file council to come and give verbal evidence at the select committee. And I think we got a good opportunity to say all the points that we wish to say, really, about partnership working with the NHS, about how certain mechanisms within which our health and care systems are established, especially funding mechanisms, work against us doing the proper neighbourhood orientated partnership work that we really want to do and that the government wants us to do. So we landed a point or 2 on that. Also, in regard to the increased demand that we see from people who are having enduring mental ill health, learning disabilities, autism, younger adults as well. So there were a number of good points that were made, and I think it was all, relatively clear. Interestingly also, they have had another call for evidence in regard to mental health, again as a precursor of the upcoming review that Baroness Casey is going to undertake of adult social care. Sorry, And also, we are one of only 2 or 3 authorities that have had our evidence published again. I don't know whether that, we think it's unlikely we'll be called to another select committee, but we are frequently contributing to these things, and it's really important to me, I think, and it's good for the council that we do, because we want to express the perspective of Bristol when it comes to the development of national policy around adult social care. It's unfortunate that our colleague Toby Stone, who was due to come and talk to us today about, or at least come and support me talking to you about the carers, all-age carers strategy, has unfortunately had an accident not at work this week, because he's done a lot of the work. Credit to him. He's done a lot of the work necessary to pull together these written submissions that we're making, and he's one of our policy officers, and he's really doing an excellent job to support us to present our information in a coherent and clear way. It's obviously getting noticed, and I'm really pleased that we continue to do that.
Fabulous. Thanks, Hugh. Finally, I just wanted to reiterate, I think, because I've been doing this and I'm going to keep reiterating that the aim of all the committees and Adult Social Care Committee is that we're meant to be working together collaboratively. We are here for the best outcomes that we can achieve for our service users in our city, with a real deficit in our budget that's been underfunded for nearly a couple of decades now. So I want us to hopefully move forward with that in mind, that we are here to work as a collective whole for the betterment of our residents in the city. Okay, so let's move on to agenda item number 6, which is public forum, and unfortunately we do not have any public forum today, so no questions or statements. Okay, so agenda item 7, we're going to move straight in to the all-age carers strategy. This report requests that Adult Social Care Committee approve, this is where the all-age carers strategy 25 to 30. Okay, so this is a key decision as it affects 2 or more wards. So I'd like to invite Hugh Heavens. Unfortunately, Toby isn't here to introduce and outline the report. Thank you.
Right, so you'll have to bear with me, because I would have benefited, as I said, from my excellent colleague Toby to support with this. But I've got some good notes. This is the final version of the all-age carers strategy, which is a Bristol City Council strategy for approval at today's policy committee. Now, it's worth noting that, as with a few other areas of activity, particularly safeguarding, and also in regard to being trauma-informed awareness, that carers, we are pushing to develop a much more corporate council-wide approach to the support of carers. It's one of these things where caring is everybody's business. You would expect, as can't blame people, but quite often when people think about carers for older people, they think, well, that's adult social services, isn't it? And when they think about younger carers, they think, well, that's children's. Well, it's all of our responsibility. We're all, we're all running services for the benefit of the city that all will support, the range of people who are taking on these roles in the city. So it's just as likely that their needs could be recognised through an involvement from housing, or involvement from the contact centre for any of a range of reasons, as it is to do with social services. So that's why we've got an all-age carers strategy. The way that you can see in the evidence-based bit quite the extent of the population of Bristol that have got these kind of caring responsibilities. It's suggested in here there are around 5 million unpaid carers in the UK, disproportionately female, almost half, 44%, who care more than 35 hours a week. 44% of those that care more than 35 hours a week are in poverty. So it's quite a disadvantageous position to be an unpaid carer. It is often said by Care UK, which is an umbrella organisation that supports carers nationally, that if unpaid care was removed, if it wasn't available, that the cost to the state to replace the work that's done by unpaid carers would be the same as another NHS, which is getting on for another £200 billion a year. So that's not small, and it's certainly worth our time and effort to consider the people that are in these roles. We think there are nearly 34,000 unpaid carers in Bristol, just under 1 in 13 of the population aged 5 years old or over. And it is, again, very much worth noting that quite a lot of unpaid carers are children who care for their older relatives or maybe siblings. The way our decision pathways work means this report has to go to a committee. This is a joint adults and children's endeavour, and it's been led by Toby from the Corporate Policy, Strategy and Public Affairs team. So whilst, as after all that I've just said, it is at the Adult Social Care Committee for ratification, but that's probably because it's the best site for it. But as it stands, it isn't only an issue that affects adult social care. Health, communities and housing, the NHS absolutely massively. So this strategy has to get buy-in from across the council, and we hope that you as committee, Adult Social Care Policy Committee members will evangelise and support the carers strategy, and get other people within your groups to be aware of it and support it too. We've got a young carers strategy in place, and previously we've had strategic priorities for carers, and this strategy brings the two pieces of work together around young carers and adult age carers, the strategic priorities to bring a strategic approach for the next 5 years. We've done extensive engagement with carers in order to bring this strategy together. We've had workshops with the Bristol Carer Support Centre, with Rethink, with the Chinese Community Wellbeing Service, with Bristol Black Carers. The latter two, the Chinese Community Wellbeing Service and Bristol Black Carers, are strong advocates for joined up approaches to this kind of work and have been extremely supportive in a range of ways with a lot of work that we've done. We've done an online survey and worked through the Integrated Care Board discharge to assess survey work, and we have had some support from the government in the last couple of years under a funding regime known as the Accelerated Reform Fund that we've also used in order to develop this. In total, we've engaged almost 200 people, in addition to looking at best practice examples of strategies elsewhere and looking at national and local data. So it is really quite a data-rich and well-informed piece of work, not only quantitative data from national information, but also from qualitative information that we've gleaned from talking to people. So there's 3 priorities in the strategy: early identification, recognition, respecting and valuing of children, young people and adults who are in carers roles. So that's the first bit, is knowing who the carers are, helping them to identify themselves as carers, and starting to get them to consider themselves as people who may be benefiting from some support as carers. The second is that carers' conversations should be timely and understand and support carers' lives outside of their caring roles, including their cultural, economic, education, social and health and well-being needs. Very important, especially as noted earlier, 44% of those with high levels of caring need are living in poverty. It's because carers quite often forego their ability to work and their ability to generate their own income because of their caring responsibilities. And then third, all carers in Bristol can access the right information and advice at the right time for themselves and for the person they care for. So that's about mobilising not only our offer, but also the offer of the carers support organisations as listed and others. Finally, it's necessary for us to note this is the beginning not the end of our carers orientated work. We want to get more sophisticated and more joined up in our work with carers, and we want to be developing an action plan with carers, co-produced, forgive the cliche, I know it's the word of the moment, but we want to be co-producing an action plan with Bristol Carers Voice. The action plan will be co-produced with carers, partners, voluntary and community groups, and framed around our 3 priority areas of early identification, recognition and respect, timeliness and access of information, advice and support. An all-age carers strategy action group will be developed to respond to the strategic ambitions that we have under each priority area, and the action plan will be developed by the end of the year and come back to this committee for approval and hopefully sign up and support. We're going to run an all-councillor workshop in May to gather feedback and ideas on what the action plan should include. So hopefully, as I said, you'll encourage your colleagues in your groups to attend that and to give it a really good showing. One of the key issues for Bristol as a city and for us as a council. So please, can you approve our all-age carers strategy? Happy to field any questions as well as I can.
Okay, so thank you for presenting that, Hugh. And I think I just wanted to feedback to the group that I read all the information thoroughly, and both Christian and I sort of tweaked the forward because it was a little bit not as it reads now. So we kind of did some work on that as well. And at first there was a little bit of confusion about, you know, what exactly was this report trying to do and achieve. And I think, as Hugh has pointed out, this is like, it's the, you know, especially around the early identification, because we know that there are many, many young people in schools that are not recognised as young carers. So there's a real thrust towards that. Thanks, Mark. And we're hoping that we can just at least acknowledge that we do have a vibrant carers, you know, lots of carers in the city, and look at lots of different ways how we can support them, which unfortunately financially would be the top, at the very top, but it's not always possible. So I'd like to take some questions. I'm going to start with Councillor Weston. Anybody else? Then Councillor White. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. The report and the strategy seems fine. I've got no issues with it at all. My fear is we've been here a little bit before, and actually a lot of these strategies do read the same. They have the same lofty goals, the same lofty aims. But I really just don't care about warm words. My whole worry is how it translates on the ground. And despite all the strategies, we still hear about problems that carers have accessing. And in particular, the one that gets me, and everyone will have their own, it's young carers. And there's almost a pressure for them to take care of their family. They're becoming almost a parent, and they stop going to school. Well, actually, the school is the place where they get to be a kid. And it's just sometimes really heartbreaking. So you said there was a young carer strategy that sits alongside this. I take it that's gone to children and young people services, but they do mesh together. So that's where I would expect to, you're nodding at me here, so I'm assuming, and that's where we put in the school support and everything else. I was about to say it's a little light in here, but I just want to make sure that is covered elsewhere.
Answer yes, it is covered elsewhere. I fully concur with and agree with your concern that, you know, this is another big stack of warm words that could just end up on a warm words shelf. See?
They're beautifully written warm words.
Yeah. There's Toby. Shame he can't be with us today. But this is why, you know, we are majoring on co-production. We are emphasising the importance of involvement of all the people concerned. Tom might, you know, you don't have to, Tom, but you might want to chip in regard to what we commission in regard to carers, because we do spend some money on carer support services, but it is only as good as the involvement of the people of the city, especially elected members and community leaders and others. So I'd really urge everybody to, you know, it would be great if we could come out of this meeting with X number, you know, however many we've got here today, 6, 7 plus two people who aren't here of carers champions, you know, who go forward and take this as being a personal mission in their own kind of localities, in their own wards, to really drive forward this care, this support, you know, for people. And awareness raising is the most important thing. Yes, it is also in conjunction with children's, and I don't know the exact shape of the mooted conversation that we're due to have in May, but it obviously we need to have the children's representatives there at our all-councillor conversation about this, so that we can, I'm not looking at you with any other expectation other than, oh, you're writing it down, thanks, from, excellent. So yeah, because it is very much about young carers as well, and as you say, Councillor Weston, it is quite, it's quite heartbreaking when you hear about some of the effort that some kids put in to care for their relatives, and how disadvantageous that is for them when it comes to being kids, and how much benefit they get just once a week or once a month to mix with other kids who are doing similar things. So yeah, but everybody, please, it's all of our job, so let's all join together and do something about it. It'd be great.
Councillor Y?
Yeah, no, I welcome this. Just quickly on being a councillor champion, if someone wants to give some thought about what that might mean, I think we'd all be keen to hear it, if you know what I mean. But my actual question was about, on page 17, about the money we spent. And just totting it up, it's just shy of £50 per carer a year. I'd be quite interested to know how we benchmark with other people on our sort of carers spend. And then the second part of that, sort of in the sort of spirit of all being together on this one, as Lorraine kind of alluded to at the beginning, I'm just mindful of Kelvin and Louis' amendment to the budget, talking about not the Meals on Wheels, but the protecting some of the voluntary sector funding. And my response was around, we probably need to have a look at our preventative funding, of which some of this support will be, and about how we best use it and how best deploy it. So I don't know if we'd be better off giving it to all one carers organisation, or keeping that split, for example. So I'd like to be able to explore that a bit more. Or should we move money from some other preventative services into carer support? I think we need that sort of wider debate on our preventative services. So that was my sort of questions and comments, really.
Thank you. Yes, all good. Benchmarking, I'm not sure, but we can certainly find some information. And I expect that Tom's probably already written that down to go away and research. He's probably already got some. He's already done it, look. So we'll come to that in a sec. In regard to what it means to be a councillor champion, yes, let's have a think and a talk about that. Maybe we can prepare some proposals for the conversation that we have in the next couple of months in regard to this, and see if we can get a weight of momentum behind it. In regard to the commissioning side of it, again, I'll probably defer to Tom in regard to that. But as it stands, as I know you've kind of got a background in this, as other people have, any kind of conversation that we can have as part of our co-productive work to develop what we do next in regard to carers, all extremely valuable as far as I'm concerned.
Cool. Sorry. Councillor Blake, and then Tom, if he wants to chip in.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I'm fed up of highfalutin strategies that don't go anywhere. I think this is different, actually, simply because I think it sets out 3 clear priorities. Now, they're quite a high level still, but I think I like it hones in, I think, on some key areas where an action plan can really take it forward with some clear sort of goals and some time scales associated with it, and any finance implications. But I just quite like the idea that often in other organisations I've been involved in, you have a strategy which don't define its sort of like priorities as clearly as it's defined in this space, and I'm happy with that. I guess for me though, there's like a whole raft of people out there, carers, that have no engagement at all with us at the moment, and I do worry about the sort of how we're going to reach out and beyond what's already the people that are already engaged with us. And because priority 3 is that all carers in Bristol can access information. But that's the point. So I think we need to have that's a great ambition, but we need to kind of have some reality in the action plan that comes associated with this. And I think, making sure we do things that positively have a real impact for the individuals concerned, I think is where I'm at with this. That so I think it's very positive, and I think that it's identifying all the key areas that we need to focus in on. I think the action plan, in some respects, is where the sort of rubber hits the road, and we understand exactly what we're going to do as an authority in terms of making a difference in the space, and what our scale of ambition going to have to be because of the available resources we put to it. Just one last word on councillor champions, if you will. I mean, for me, it's setting a sort of minimum standard, but not setting a maximum standard with this, because I think it's for us as councillors to kind of like showcase what we can do, right? But setting a sort of these are the types of things that you could do, right, as a champion. But actually, the world's your oyster with this. How you want to kind of. But here's something guiding principles, the co-design part of it. Like, it's not for councillors to tell their local, carers in their community how they're going to do it. So setting a set of principles, guiding principles, if you will, and some of the sort of small interventions that you could do to get a broad brush sign up, so we get some kind of minimum standards, but then actually saying that, but it's up to you if you want to do more and actually push the boat out, then go for it.
Just me quickly. And I think the carers centre, the carers organisations that's going to be doing the sort of legwork, hopefully that will pull through in the consultation. Councillor Watson.
All right, thank you, Chair. Two very quick things, and I promise I'll shut up and I'll be voting in favour of it. Just one was, when we go out to engage, obviously we're working with the carers associations, various groups that do that, charities, we work with schools. What about things like the multi-faith forums and the religious groups? Because actually, for example, I know my vicar, she goes out and does communion to people because they can't get to church, and they're often involved in carers' responsibilities. I'm sure mosques and synagogues have similar procedures. They might actually have ties into communities that sort of suffer in silence, or that might be worth a look. But also, where the rubber meets the road, as Councillor Blake put it, I do wonder when the strategies, both here and the young carer strategy, are passed, it might well be worth a joint look in, say, 12 months' time by both committees together, because otherwise we're doing it in silo, and actually there's a huge amount of synergy between the two, just to how it has translated, whether it is working, what that action plan looks like. I'll just throw that as an idea. Thank you.
Yep, I totally agree. Okay. Any more questions? Any more observations? Anybody? I'm not sure. I was going to give him a break. But you may not want.
I will come back.
Yeah.
I'll do some analysis of the adult social care finance return and compare us with Southwest comparators and core cities, and let you know. I can do it whilst I'm here, but I'm speaking next, so I won't be able to quite yet.
No,
it's all good.
No, I was aware. So this report, right? So sorry. So we've had our questions. So that we basically, what we want is that the Committee of Adult Social Care approves the all-age carer strategy 25 to 30 with all the caveats that we've discussed already. So can I ask for a seconder to approve the report? Thank you, Councillor Blake. So we don't have to. Sorry, do we need to take a vote on this? Oh, we do need to. I do beg your pardon. We need to take a vote. I do get my little votes mixed up. So we need to have a show of hands just to see that everybody approves. So can I ask for show of hands? Yes, that's unanimous. Thank you very much. Thank you. Okay. There's no abstention, so we're good. Okay, let's move on to agenda. I'm not awake today, I think. I think my brain isn't turned on this afternoon. So agenda item 8 is adult social care provider inflation. Okay, so this report outlines the proposed value of the inflation for adult social care providers funded through adult social care purchasing budget and the approach to allocating to its providers. So this is a key decision as it involves a spend and save of over 500k. So I'm going to invite Councillor Wilson to introduce and outline the report.
You promoted him to a councillor.
Sorry,
I don't remember the
sorry.
action, but-
Sorry, Councillor, not Tom Wilson. Thank you. That might be a conflict of interest. Okay, and then, yeah, thank you. So over to you, Tom. Sorry.
Thank you very much. That was never
Interesting,
considered
isn't it?
myself in that light before.
Yeah.
Okay, hello everyone. So this was quite a complex report to write and probably comes across more dry than it felt to write because a lot of thinking went into this. Every year the council and all councils have to consider the inflation that we pay to providers in the market to support them to be able to afford to provide sustainable care and support a balanced market. This year has been more challenging and more interesting than others. That is because there are a range of inflationary pressures on adult social care providers as there are on many employers following the budget that was set at the end of last year. I've included some narrative around that and some of the risk, including some of the national reports, but the estimate is approximately £1 billion pressures to adult social care providers as a result of those of national living wage and national insurance contributions. There's some particular factors as to why that affects this market more, and some of that is because a lot of people in this market are part-time workers, and so proportionally they're affected more by the national insurance changes. Just a little bit, and this is very relevant to this, Bristol is a high-spending local authority in relation to adult social care. That same tool that I was just looking at for carers, adult social care finance return, is something that I use to benchmark against a range of different groups to see where we are. And we know that whilst Bristol's done well in recent years in managing costs and containing the increasing adult social care spend, we are still a high spend local authority. Just scroll through. So we know that, in the council's budget this year, a figure of 9.357 million was put aside for potential adult social care inflation, which is 4.2% of the purchasing budget. And so myself and my team have spoken a number of times to providers and provider representatives. We've also been working through talking to other local authorities and looking at how we can best use that fund to support providers in this particularly challenging time. It goes without saying, but I will say it, that the council has to balance affordability and financial sustainability of the council with that of providers, and that's how the council ended up with 4.2%. I think we would all have liked to pass on more if we were able. I won't go into what I did in the paper, but I looked at the different ways you could consider inflation, the different types that you could balance, whether you have a variable inflationary uplift and you sort of promote certain types of service or certain types of provider, or whether you have more of an across-the-board uplift. And what I've said is Strategically, you would normally want to have a variable uplift because that's one of the ways that you can shape the market. That's one of the ways that you can really support a move away from, say, residential care and towards more independent-focused support. However, looking at this and thinking about this over a number of weeks and in a lot of detail, we ended up ultimately proposing that we pass on a 3.5% uplift to all services funded by the adult social care purchasing budget. And the reason for that is that we didn't want to be in a position where we're passing on lower than that to organisations, maybe as little as 2% to some organisations, knowing that they've got the same cost pressures built in, the same increased cost for them delivering adult social care in the year ahead as everyone else. So the recommendation, there's a bit here about how we'll implement it. There's quite a lot in terms of how we will keep working with the market, what we're going to do when providers come back to us and say that's not enough, we're not sustainable. My team are going to be on the front foot. We're going to be monitoring the impact of this from day one, it's actually 2 weeks today, I think, the start of the financial year. So we are expecting there to be some impact of this. We're monitoring it, but the recommendations here are the officer's recommendations as we think the best way to proceed.
Right, thank you very much, Tom, because it is, like you said, a very complex area. So, questions, starting off with Councillor Martin and then Councillor Blake, followed by Councillor Weston. So, if you ask your questions in turn, that's fine. I won't keep interrupting. Okay.
Thanks, Chair. Thanks, Tom. I think you're putting yourself down a bit by saying it was dry. I was actually quite riveted by it in this because when I was reading it, I was sure it read like option 2 was going to be the one that you went with. And like it says here about it's in line with the kind of long-term objectives of the council, wanting to kind of shape the market a bit. But in the end, you've gone for option 1, which is about not letting care providers fall out, basically, of the market. That was kind of the main drive. Could you say a bit more about that? And yeah, would there be a case when option 2 would be a more kind of realistic, because that's obviously the one that maybe we'd want ideally if we had, you know, the money available, or in the situation we'd want to be in.
Yeah, I mean, I'm hoping that I'm sat here in a year's time, and I'm hoping that I'm sat here in a year's time describing a process that's a lot more like option 2. We know, and I'm guessing I might talk a bit about benchmarking in answer to another question, but we know that there are services that we pay relatively more than others. The reason, so one of the things we did was we looked in lots of different ways. One of the things we did was look provider by provider, taking some examples and saying, what's a 2% uplift going to do for them? What's a 4% uplift going to do for them? What's a 3.5%? And ultimately it came down to, we all started off thinking we want to do something like option 2. And then when we started modelling it through, we just realised that the lower increases to other providers were just not going to be enough. You know, it wasn't going to help. So we've made this proposal on the basis that we think this is going to keep the most number of providers stable and sustainable and minimise the impact on individuals. Because the one thing we don't want is providers either going out of business or handing back packages, which basically means no longer supporting an individual and saying you need to find someone else to do it. So it's a very small c conservative approach that we've gone to, but that's because of the situation that we're in and the fact that we do see disruption as a result if we started giving out 2% inflation to providers.
Okay, thanks. I'm wondering about whether or not, so the reason, can you tell us more about this contingency fund then? because it could be an argument that says 3.5 not enough, and that is the plan to use contingency on the providers that are potentially going to come back with. There's going to have to be some assessment about how we deploy that contingency, and also the sort of sense that if we'd have put 4.2 out there in the first instance and said we can't go any further than this, that perhaps the market would have had to adjust then. So can you give us a bit more explanation around why we've decided on a contingency, why we've decided that level of contingency, and how we're going to deploy it if we have to deploy it?
Yeah, I mean, if we can deploy exactly 0.7, I'll be very happy. We know every year, even when these situations do not arise, we have service providers come back to us and say, for one reason or another, we're not able to continue operating. And I'm already, they're not waiting for today. I'm already getting providers coming back and saying, unless we get X%, we're no longer going to be able to function. So providers will come to us. They'll explain that they need more than 3.5%. We will go for the most rigorous process we can. We'll use a tool that we have called Care Cubed to look at their actual costs, see if it's reasonable. We'll ask them to be open book with us, share what they're going through, share their situation, and then we'll, through a decision-making process led by directors with finance involvement, we will pass on inflation to those organisations that that both need it and that are strategically important. We are not going to do that on a case-by-case basis, so it's not going to be first come, first serve, and the reason for that is that we may get to a point where we're not able to financially sustain all organisations this year, and we might need to look at which we prioritise. So it's a process that happens every year. We would normally have a contingency of something like 0.5%. So if we had more than 0.7%, that would be good. The reason that we didn't pass on 3% and keep back 1.2% is, as described, using all the intelligence we've got, understanding what other councils were intending to pass on. This was a figure that at the time we made it, we felt was about in line with what others were doing, and therefore hopefully sort of the sweet spot. There could have been an argument for 3.7 and 0.5 or 3.3 and 0.9, but this was where we came down after many conversations. Just we thought this was the best balance we could get.
Do you want to follow up with that? Yeah. Just pondering.
I'm just reflecting on the answer. I haven't got a response right now.
Cool. Councillor Weston.
Thank you. Yeah, no, I understand where you're coming from. It's a judgment call. And you can make an argument at any point, and it's very easy for us who've not gone through the evidence to second guess and go, oh, why didn't you go 3 and split the difference? Well, actually, I've got no greater knowledge for why you would pick 3 or 2 or 2.5 or whatever other permutation you can come up with. I just wanted to check on your benchmarking. You talked about how it compared to other authorities, in particular, how we compare to neighbouring authorities, but also similar urban authorities, if you can, principally in the southwest. How do we compare to the likes of Plymouth or Birmingham or wherever else? I know Birmingham's not in the southwest. No one start that, but you know what I mean.
So what we will do after today, assuming agreement, is we'll write out to all providers and we'll give a list of this is. So I've got 2 letters open in front of me now from 2 other Somerset local authorities. I haven't had them from the others. I've seen the percentage uplifts. The thing I'd say is it's really important to look at not the percentage uplift, the actual rate that you're applying the uplift to. So I have one local authority here, gave 4% across the board uplift compared to our 3.5. But if you look at their rates, residential care, £805 a week. Ours is currently £870 a week. So they'd have to give a 8 to 10% uplift to get to where we are. The other local authority surprised us, and they've passed on between 6 and 8%. But again, the inflation that they're passing on still brings them up. Residential, with their 6.8%, it goes up to £865. Ours starts at 870 and will go up to just about 900. So we know that we pay relatively more. I haven't put the figures in here, but there's a thing called the MSIF, Market Sustainability Improvement Fund. Yes, I think I've mentioned it in the report. We know based on that we benchmark relatively high for everything. The one area that we don't in the southwest is home care. And home care is the place where, so for example, one of these local authorities is going from £23.76 to £25.26. So they're going from below us to above us. We're currently £24 an hour. But we know that Bristol, compared to the southwest, has much more of a marketplace. So we've currently got 146 home care providers. You might have heard 144 in the past, it's now 146. So we don't think we're in any risk of not being able to find enough home care providers. What we need to do is manage the market so that we're keeping as many of them sustainable as possible. So cities tend to have lower rates of home care. Lowest home care in the country is Harrow, somewhere I used to work, which is about £7 an hour less than ours. So we think, again, looking at the prices, I'm not looking at the prices we're paying and the others that I'm seeing and thinking we've got a problem from that respect. But what we will have is, I guess, squeezed margins.
Thank you, Chair. I'm fine then with option 1 as directed. It would be interesting if I might suggest in 3 or 4 months' time, maybe just as a written addendum, report for information, just to report back of what the impact was once you've had the discussions with the various providers and they've come back and said, oh, actually, we need 8, 10, 12, whatever. I'd like to have a bit of a feel, if that's all right. But I'm fine as suggested.
Yeah, we've proposed to come back in October 25, but we'd be happy to give an update sooner. We hope we don't have to give an update sooner.
If you do, then it's gone horribly wrong. All right.
Okay, so let me just change my glasses a moment so I can see. That's why I'm struggling a bit. Okay, so for clarity, we've got 3 out sort of statements. So that 1, the committee approves the proposed inflationary uplift and gives delegated authority to the Executive Director of Adults and Communities in consultation with the Chair of Adult Social Care Committee to take all necessary steps to allocate 3.57 million inflationary uplift to care providers' fees. That we note that the proposed process for the Executive Director to implement inflation uplift, so the Director implements this, and 3, receives a report on the impact on inflationary, I can't say it, pressures on the adult social care market and recipients of adult social care in October 2025. So this will come back in October 25. So we need to move the report and the recommendation as set out. So can I ask for a seconder to actually move the report? Thank you, Councillor Martin. We've had our discussions. You've heard the recommendation. So we need to take a vote. So can we show by hand? Oh, 2 things. Oh yeah. Sorry, could you put your mic on, please, Councillor? Sorry. I can see you.
I'm wondering whether or not I can vote. There's a question on Teams from Ben.
Okay. Excuse me.
Can you double check?
Okay. Somebody will look for you. Whilst Bronwyn is checking. Councillor Weston? Oh, sorry. Sorry, just had a slight pause. Technical itch. Technical. Can you see it? Let me just go over and have a look. Should I go and... Let me just... Is it on Teams? Because I'm not... Pause, and we all vote when we come back. We'll have a 5-minute water break, please. Thank you. Oh. We've gone over our 5 minutes, so we have 3 people able to vote. So we're going to go to the minimum of that because Councillor Martin has not returned as yet. Should we proceed without him? Yes. Okay. So let's go back to where I was before we had our break. So we're just about to go to the vote. So can I ask for the 3 points that I read out earlier? Who's in favour? Sorry. 4. 1, 2, 3. Absolutely. Thank you. So that's, and me, 4. So we've unanimous vote, so we don't have to go for against. Would George be an abstention? 5. Yeah. We'll clarify. Oh, he's back. Sorry. There we go. Councillor Martin's back. Okay. Thank you. So that's unanimous. We will be. Sorry.
Maybe clarify the rules, and if it means that I can vote, have my vote be a 4. Is that possible?
Yeah, I'll put an action in the minutes to clarify the position, but I will come back to you on that. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Great. Okay, so bit of excitement. So let's move on to agenda item 9, which is the ASC Transformation, Adult Social Care Transformation Programme. So this is quarter 3, okay? So this report provides an update on the progress of the Adult Social Care Transformation Programme for quarter 3, which is 2024, I'm afraid. There are no decisions to be taken on this report, which is for noting. So I'm going to invite Hugh to introduce and outline the report.
Thank you for that. I think the first point that I'd like to make is that we have taken fully on board suggestions at prior committees, primarily from Councillor Blake, in regard to this report. It isn't in format or indeed in the information it contains the most useful report that we could provide on this work. And work is, I assure you, in progress to produce an improved version which after running past Councillors Francis and Blake prior to the next committee, the next committee with this report, quarter 4 featured in, we hope to bring you then, but obviously you'll, the Chair and Vice Chair, will get to look at it first. So that's a work in progress. You've seen these reports in this format before. There are some updates within, and you'll know the shape of it very much is around our primary transformational themes, which are about managing demand for adult social care, managing supply of adult social care. Now, you've already heard quite a detailed report from Tom earlier around one of the key elements to do with managing supply, which is around unit costs, around workforce, around the services that the council provides as a direct provider of adult social care, around our relationships with key partners, primarily with the NHS. So some of the updates we have within here are in the context of those particular areas of activity. I don't know whether... were we going to be telling Councillor why that?
Yeah,
we have done. Yeah, sorry.
No, we're just telling him now. We suddenly.
I'm just thinking. I was just thinking actually because there's one point that I know that he's going to want to hear. And yeah. Well, anyway, yeah. So, you know, there are some key points of discussion that we're proposing in this report on page 83 of your packs. We can give you an update on, it seems that because this is a catch-all of adult social care development areas, we have been including our preparation for our CQC inspection in this report. So I have got an update on that, and it won't only take us up to quarter 3, it will take us beyond that to the present moment. there's updates in regard to our market sufficiency, and these are the next steps in our commissioning work around the use of our commissioning framework to develop good supply for the city. And the update in this context is about the work that we're doing to try and develop prime provider relationships through procurement across the localities of the city to mirroring the localities of the integrated care system, as you know, around learning disabilities and transition. So we want to be building local capacity of services to support people with learning disabilities, autism, especially those in transitions, locally, so that we don't have to rely on out-of-area placements. You'll know also from a range of discussions we've had in the past, that's complemented by quite significant work we're doing to develop specialised supported accommodation, so that there's somewhere for people to live when they receive these locally developed services. And we plan that almost regardless of level of need or level of demand that people individually present, that we should be able to support them locally and use the money that we spend on supporting them in our local economy rather than spending elsewhere. Then there'll be some upcoming work to develop equivalent for people who need services due to mental ill health. And as noted, our planned procurements have been delayed for approximately 6 months. So, you know, if there's any further conversation required about that, we can go into it. But I think what we're finding is that our massive endeavours to develop a new single commissioning framework are proving to be really quite significant in regard to getting the big work up and running, and we're calling them teething problems, although there's probably quite significant orthodontic work required with something of this size. So just imagine an elephant's teeth. Or the digitalisation, we're underway, commencing work on a couple of AI tools to look at how we can use that to streamline our assessment and care management processes and enable people, especially those who don't use, who perhaps people who have dyslexic people or people for whom English isn't their first language. We hear from other local authorities nearby, primarily Swindon, who are extremely positive, also Wiltshire, that some of their staff have really benefited from using of AI tools. The main one is called Magic Notes, which I think we've got a pilot that we're commencing with, but there's also one that a national one that the government's putting out that we're also going to pilot alongside. So we're going to try out a couple of those and see whether people like them and how useful they are. You'll know about our target operating model work. We've spoken about that in committee before, and the outline business case is actually now available, and we are moving the work to develop the new structures forward in this Q4 of the year. So you've got an update that's beyond Q3 there, but that is a definite work in progress, and we're pushing forward to get the implementation of our target operating model taking place in quarters 1 and 2 of the next financial year. Again, another major bit of work. I'd like to just highlight some key deliverables, things that we've actually done. The Adult Social Care Transformation Programme has secured, did secure by the 31st of December, 5.15 million in savings for the financial year that we're just coming to the end of. It will meet its targets within the financial year. In some areas, it's going to overachieve. We've still got a very challenging financial position for adult social services in this council, but I want to emphasise the point that we really are getting to grips with some of the key challenges financially that we face, and putting together systems so that we can work in future more effectively and more cost effectively. To deliver, as it says at point 3, the key target outcome. Number 2, adult social care will be more financially stable and have better grip and control over spend. we've been doing a lot of work in preparation. Well, I won't say that. That's not the motivation behind it. Following a peer review in December 2023, which was a kind of piloting for our CQC inspection, highlighted some quite significant issues we had in regard to people waiting for care assessments, for reviews and for other assessment activity. And we've done significant work to address that over the last year and a bit. And as you can see, page 85, points 4 and 5, we've reduced the number of people waiting from 941 in June 24 to 528 at the end of January 25, reduction of 44%. And the number of people waiting for more than 12 months for review has reduced from 1,793 in June to 1,426, a reduction of 20%. We have reduced overall our review burden quite significantly more than that. So that was commented on and was viewed extremely positively by the CQC when we had our inspection in January. Now, I don't want to jump the gun and preempt a report that we will be presenting to you about our CQC outcome later on, May, June time, depending on how quickly the report can be turned around. We have had a draft report, and we're working on that and preparing our critique of it as we are entitled to under the rules of it. It's what's called a factual accuracy report that we're putting together. Suffice to say, Pete and Tom and colleagues are working very hard to ensure that what they featured in that report is absolutely accurate and factually correct, and that our score has been fair. Suffice to say that the inspection, we think, went really quite well, and we felt very positive about it after it had happened. A number of people in this room were interviewed as part of it, and people can feed in if they want to, but as it stands, I think we gave good account of ourselves and showed ourselves to be strong and developing absolutely in the right direction as an adult social services entity within a council. So I'll leave it at that, but expect a revamp of this report by the next time we present quarter 4. And I want to leave, we've still got a major set of issues, especially as we move into the new financial year, but I want to leave a general air of positivity. We've achieved a lot this year, and I'm feeling very positive about how we can continue to do that in upcoming years.
Right, thank you, Hugh. It's been an incredibly tough year, so I think the service should be really proud of what it's achieved. So we've got questions from Councillor Blake, Councillor White and Councillor Martin. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I've agreed much of what you've said, Hugh. Service is definitely moving in the right direction, which is really important. For me, though, I'm glad that we're going to rework the report. I think that's really important, as per my previous comments. But I wonder, sometimes this stuff is a bit abstract from what is actually happening on the ground, and there's some positive stuff around what's happening on the ground, and I wonder whether or not there might be room to provide us with some sort of case study type, especially, and that should alleviate some concerns around care packages, for instance, getting them right, reviews of care packages, giving us some case studies about the kind of things that we're looking at. So, because I think that will connect us better with this process as far as understanding what it really means. It will hopefully alleviate concerns out there around these reviews of long-term packages, for instance, and right-sizing packages going forward with a view that says we want to get the costs down, but we want it to make them more appropriate. So I think by way of taking this committee through some kind of examples might be helpful. I know, but they have to be they have to be chosen on the basis of being kind of typical and something that could be replicable, if that's the word, rather than abstract. So something that helps us rather than hinders us, I guess. I think that would be really, really helpful. And that kind of goes back to the new model of care on our target operating system. It's, for me, they are a little bit abstract still. I mean, you can get into the detail of them and understand it, but you kind of sometimes have to be almost like a practitioner, and not all of us are. And that's not to say, you know, I think practitioners on the board here, and we've got many, bring a very helpful skill to it. But I think so. So I think any encouragement around treating us like we don't know what we're doing and taking us through this by holding our hands, I think would be really helpful for us to understand exactly how this stuff's going to result in the changes that we want to see and alleviate any concerns and fears out there at the same time. And then the final point is I wonder where with some of our couple of amendments that we've got passed recently, where that feeds in to this, or does it feed into our finance report, and how we're going to manage that going forward, and how we're going to respond to that. I just wouldn't mind knowing if it is in the some of this was sort of baked into the transformation plan, and now it isn't. So will it come out through this, or will it come out through a separate report? Thank you.
Thank you. All good points. We want to develop as we go, continuously improve. So again, we're coming towards the end of the first year of the Adult Social Care Policy Committee, and hopefully we can provide you something that's getting there by the end of Q4. Certainly, in regard to case studies, we want our elected members to really get to grips with adult social care, really get involved and learn about it, because it is, especially considering we commandeer getting on for 50% of the general fund of the council's budget, it is a bit Cinderella-like in its recognition. And that's one thing that we did highlight with the CQC, that since this policy committee system has been in place, adult social care has been getting a lot more of a public airing, a lot more consideration publicly than it did have in the previous system, where Cabinet, by necessity, did used to deal with a lot of things on each particular meeting and didn't necessarily get the conversation going as well as we do here. In regard to, now having said all of that, I can't remember what the last speaks. Oh, about the budget stuff, yeah. So the two particular items where amendments are passed through around the Help When You Need It and the Home Improvement Agency, they both are in our financial proposals for the budget, and we can feed back on how that has become, how that's manifested itself in upcoming weeks. To be fair, not exactly sure what report we would include them in, because well, let me think about that. Come back. Yep.
Just two quick questions, really. It's great to see the reviews are happening. I'm just wondering what the effects is, because when you review someone, their package can go one or two ways. So I'm just wondering what the impact of that is. So that's the first question. So I'll ask them both together, Q. And the second, on page 80, because it's kind of linked, which I've now just lost. Sorry. It says that one of the things we're looking at is scrutinising long-term committed spend. And I wonder if that specifically means on individuals, on high care packages, and that links into review. Yeah, so it's paragraph 9A2, scrutinising long-term committed spend with a programme of best value reviews to ensure optimum delivery against need. Is that basically looking at reviewing our high care packages, high cost packages?
Yeah. So I'll start the ball rolling on both of those, and then Tom might want to come in regard to that. But yes, certainly these are. This is all about reviewing, and we're reviewing in the context of some benchmarks where we know objectively, but not subjectively, that Bristol tends to commit quite high levels of resource, both in regard to the numbers of hours a week on average, and I'm not talking about particular or individual cases at all, but on average we tend to commit quite high numbers of hours compared to our benchmark partners in the country. But also, I think beyond that, it's also very much, and I know it's in the demand section, but it is very much about supply. So it is very much about looking at particular providers that we do commit quite a lot of resource to and buy quite a lot of care from, and ensure that within big providers where we may have, tens of cases, or even between providers, that we're getting a balanced and fair cost of care. So that's what those points are alluding to. It kind of crosses over the managing demand and managing supply bit, but the long-term committed spend bit is about, and I always guess on this, I don't know the exact numbers, but let's say about 20% of our spend each year is churn. So people stop receiving adult social services and they start and they go in and out. And then 70-80% of our spend each year is money that we're spending year on year. So it's about making sure that we're always on top of all of our spend and not just the new stuff. And making sure that we are reviewing people regularly so they're getting exactly what they need, and ensuring that that what we're paying is right for the sake of the Bristol pound. Now, in regard to the review work that we've undertaken so far, it hasn't delivered huge savings. There have been some savings inherent, but I haven't got the latest figures to hand, but the majority of the reviews, as in more than 50%, are status quo. They stay the same. The majority do. And then there are a proportion where people end up getting additional care and support because their needs have increased. And there's also a significant proportion of people whose needs have decreased or that don't need the care and support that they've had before. This is especially apparent when people, say, for example, get a package of care when they come out of hospital when their needs are very high, but as they get home and settle down and stabilise, they don't necessarily need quite as much care and support after 6 weeks, 12 weeks, 18 weeks. So it's a mixed bag. But, again, despite assumptions that some people might make, there's not huge amounts of money to be readily made through reviewing, but it does ensure that we keep on top of all of our spend, and that's the most important thing.
And just a quick follow-up, when some of those very high-cost places need quite a lot of social work impact to reduce them a lot, and I'm just making sure we've got kind of capacity within the system to do those very high-cost places, like moving out of somebody from out of their residential back to Bristol kind of things. Very intense.
It is, and it's worth doing, and it's obviously worth doing for the benefit of the people concerned as well. And this is something that, we do make clear, despite claims that are sometimes made about, forcing people into care and all of that. That's happened precisely no times in the last 2 years, but in the last 2 years, we have enabled more than 60 people to move out of institutional care into their own homes, into council tenancies primarily, but also 1 or 2 people into specialised supported accommodation, and that number will increase. And so actually, we are a council that supports people to live independently in their own homes, not a council that puts people into care against their will. That is obviously better for people. That's what people actually want. Everybody wants their own. Well, I won't say absolutely everybody, but it seems the trend is the majority of people want their own front door and to live in their own place. But also, so it's better for people, but also it does tend to be more cost effective because we're not paying the costs of institutional care, which include hotel costs and, building and rent costs and things.
Yeah, and I think that I think sometimes the reviewing brings up anxiety in people sometimes because the assumption is always going to be that means you're taking something away. But obviously, as Hugh has described, it's not always that, and that's really important. But the Care Act says we actually need to review care packages every 6 months or every 12 months. So I think that we need to be able to demonstrate that that's happening. Thank you. Councillor Martin.
Thanks, Chair, and thanks, Hugh. Just about the Transformation Programme, on page 79 it says Council spent 11.5% more on adult social care than the average local authority, but that since the programme started, we've closed in on that, closed that gap. I'm just wondering if you've got any numbers for how much that has been reduced by? It was 11.5%. Is it gone down to 9?
Yes, and again, I will see, I mean, unless I go on too long and he doesn't want to, but I think Tom could probably add some insight on this. We have got a number of savings proposals that are based exactly on this, which is that, as I noted before in the prior answer, on average, not huge, but on average, we do commit more hours per week per person than our comparators. So we benchmark quite high on that. And I think, as Tom said earlier on, we do, apart from in domiciliary care in the Southwest, but also nationally, we do spend unit cost-wise quite high on our social care provision. And so what our aim, and that 11.5% is a working through of that to show that we, that we're on average quite expensive when it comes to it. Now, the Southwest is quite expensive. Core cities are quite expensive because core cities tend to have younger populations with higher levels of need. So there's lots of explanations as to why we're more expensive, but still we can do more in order to work down overall the amount that we commit, both ensuring that we're giving people the right amount of care and reviewing them regularly to make sure that is right, but also that we're spending the right amount per unit of care, whether that be an hour of domiciliary care or whether that be the cost of a placement. So I can't give you any elaboration in regard to the 11.5% and what we could get it down to, but we do have a number of savings proposals for the next MTFP that are based upon that very challenge.
And can I just point? Sorry, if you want to give data.
Just to give you one stat I've got in front of me. So each year we do the adult social care finance return, and so that gives you 1 year's data. So between 23 and 24, so up until March the 31st last year, and we'll be doing the next year soon, and we'll get it in October. Bristol in that year increase of 8.37% of spend. The England average was 13.56. The Southwest average was 10.2. Comparators 14.3 and core cities 12. So we closed the gap by 4% on core cities and 5% on England. So in 1 year. So I'm hoping and expecting that in October we see the same thing. And what I'll also do, because I've created this tool for this year, I'll be able to add multiple years together and we'll be able to show how we do over a larger period of time.
It's good having a numbers guy.
And I was just going to say as well that 0.3, page 79, the 11.5% related to 21-22. So we have moved forward because it says the gap between BCC and comparators average is closing. So as Tom has just pointed out, yeah. So just so that it's clear that we were talking about 21-22 with that data. Okay. Anybody else have any? Councillor Blake.
Sorry, just one last thing. Be interested to know, make sure we don't go. It'd be interesting to see if we go under the average, and what that will mean in terms of ensuring that we are still delivering appropriate care for the individuals we're talking about. So, Tom's great at telling us that we're always over. I'm going to be coming back, I think, Tom, very firmly about if we go under and what the consequences are. But that's for another conversation. The other quick thing, we did have a plan in terms of bringing people from outside the area into the area, and we've been successful at doing that. I think we're limited on capital spend that we can deploy in this area, and I just wondered that was there an argument, Hugh, that if we get to a point where we've committed all our capital, but there's still potential to go for more, that there'll be a case to spend underspend in capital to kind of go for it, because these are big savings potentially that could be delivered, but we need the capital to kind of support the development of some of the services locally, because it feels to me that whenever this is a sort of almost like if we could do as much as we possibly can as quickly as we can. That's going to benefit this budget massively and benefit the council massively.
Okay, Chair.
Yeah.
I was going to. I think we ought to give Tom a chance to come back on the point as if we go under as well, if that's all right with you, Chair. But just very briefly, in regard to the capital orientated element, as you know, we are majoring on specialised supported accommodation at the moment, and we're nationally leading on that, and lobbying MHCLG. In regard to the Ministry for Housing, Communities and Local Government, to enable councils to benefit from the mechanism that gives us specialised supported accommodation rather than just private sector or quasi-private organisations. At the moment, we are doing quite a lot of it, but it all has to be done through our friendly registered providers, our local providers. Elim Housing's a key one, Places for People. There are 2 or 3 that we're working with quite a lot. And if councils could do that, we could move forward at pace using our own capital. As it stands, what we do in underwriting the use of the accommodation is we give them the right to realise capital themselves. So we don't use their capital. We don't use our capital for that. That doesn't mean what you say isn't right. And we have got 1 or 2 smaller elements, as you see in the capital part of the budget, where we have got a couple of areas that we are developing ourselves. What we can do, and I always say this too many times, but I'll say it again and again, is what we do is we realise our accommodation that we've stopped using for other purposes and repurpose it for specialised supported accommodation. So there are several council facilities that, old kind of bedded care facilities, Concord Lodge, the intermediate care centres, etc., that we will be using for this. So we do put in other ways alongside the use of capital. I don't know whether we should see if Tom wants.
Yeah, Tom, did you want to come back on anything right now, or do you want to?
Only briefly to say,
okay.
The amount you spend doesn't necessarily align to how good quality the overall service is. And also, there are all sorts of different averages. So, are we average compared to core cities? Are we average compared to the southwest? Are we average compared to anywhere? Because Bristol was not average. So, we will really keep an eye. And what I would say is, I'm fascinated by the numbers because what's interesting is the variance. So, there are hundreds and hundreds and literally thousands of numbers on this. So what it does is it shines a light on areas of variance, whether we're spending more or less. It gives you something to look at. So this, I don't do this just because I want to prove that we won't spend any money. It's much more about helping to understand which areas to look at, where we seem out of line. And some areas we seem in line with core cities and not the southwest, and others we're in line with the southwest and not core cities. So really this is just about a nuanced approach to understanding, but I think we're a long way away from being average. If we end up average spend, then we will be spending more in some areas and lower and less in others, and we need to understand that as well.
Right, thank you very much. Now, any more questions? Because that was a nice, interesting debate. Anybody else got any more final comments? Okay, fabulous. So, for committee and for the benefit of members of the public, this is the recommendations, which is that the notes, the transformation update report provided, and notes that as per baselining at CLB on the 26th of April 24, no funding as yet been approved for 25-26. So then to conclude, can we just, oh goodness me, I'm having one of them days today. Can I just ask committee to note the report as per the recommendations set out? Thank you. Okay, so we're moving on now to our last item, which is the agenda item 10, the quarterly performance report, quarter 3, 24-25. So this report is to brief the Adult Social Care Committee on performance against Bristol City Council, BCC's business plan, as relevant to the remit of the committee for Q3, which is end of 24, beginning of 25, and for members to note areas of specific interest or concern with relevant directors. So there's no decision to be taken again on this report, it's just for noting. And I'd like to finally ask Peter Franklin to introduce and outline the report. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. As noted, this is a quarterly report up to the 31st of December 2024, and it shows progress against a selection of measures of success, their actions, and key performance indicators against the corporate strategy. And as highlighted, they're the ones that fit the remit of this committee. In short, on page, I'm not quite sure what it is in your report, but I've dropped a little chart in there to give an overview where 75% of the actions are on target, so that's 6 of 8, and 90% of the priority metrics are on target, with one notable one that's significantly behind where we expect it to be. But Hugh mentioned that in the previous report, which we'll have a look at in a moment. All of the information against each of the measures of success are included on Appendix A2, and I would ask if there are any questions on that appendix, please do ask. But I would draw your attention to sections 3 and 4 in my report, which are the 2 actions that are currently behind schedule, one of which is the single framework regarding the commissioning of adult social care, which we heard extensively about earlier, and if you've got any further questions, please do ask. And the other one is around the work with the healthcare partners to make it easier for people to access health intervention in their communities. The other item that Hugh mentioned earlier, it was the Care Act assessments, the initial Care Act assessments, and I think you mentioned at January it was 525, Hugh. That's dropped even further at the end of February. So the progress is significant, but because of the way the metric is calculated, over a period of a year, the actual average mean number of days remains high at 55, and will go up slightly when we look at Q4. But overall, and I've been doing this quite a few years, this is an incredibly positive position. And I don't work in adult social care, so I'm completely independent when I say that. Any questions?
Councillor Weston.
Thank you. No specific questions per se. It's something that just struck me, and it was actually related to the BC regulated quality of care service provider where provision is rated good. Am I right in saying the care service providers are inspected by the ICB, Integrated Care Board? Is Hugh nodding? I don't know. So care service providers, are they audited essentially by the ICB?
It's the CQC.
CQC. So it doesn't fall under the ICB. So I know there's been an announcement recently about obviously the integrated care boards need to lose half the headcount. And I know that they have some audit function on adult social care sectors. I'm just wondering what the impact will be. I thought this might have been it, so I've obviously got slight confused on this. I shall shut up, Chair, it's okay. Yeah, I'll take it offline with you. Okay, fair enough. Thanks.
Yeah, if I may, this was introduced by Councillor Holland a few years ago because her concern was that we see Ofsted inspections, the quality of our Bristol maintained schools, Ofsted. She wanted an equivalent one for the Bristol maintained care homes. So it's the regulatory side of it, and as you can see, it's incredibly good. In fact, it's well above national average. Talking about care, Councillor Blake.
Councillor Blake?
Yeah, mine's a separate question actually, but it relates to the discussions we're going to have with the ICB around the sort of sharing of the funding, or at least opening up of discussions around that. I just wondered, given it's sort of key, it's not on the list, but I just wondered, given the impact potentially it could have on our budgets, maybe it's a question. It is an outstanding question that we perhaps need to track. I'm not so much worried about why it's not on the list. I just wondered if there's any update about it. If there's any update about where we've got to in terms of the negotiation between the ICB and us regarding the sharing of costs.
Yeah, and you'll be referring primarily, well, for us, primarily the issues around Section 117 aftercare for people who have had periods in acute sector mental health beds, but also continuing healthcare. Yes, in answer to the first part of that, we have underway quite an extensive programme of joint work. We've frozen the prior, ceased actually. I won't say frozen. That implies it could be unfrozen, and it won't. We've stopped the prior arrangement whereby there was an automatic arbitrary 70-30 split on costs, and we're working on a case-by-case basis. And we are now in the process of developing an apportionment tool that will allow us to do a sample of the overall quota of Section 117 cases, of which I think at the moment there are somewhere between 700 and 800. So we'll be able to do a statistically significant sample and determine beyond that what would be a more realistic apportionment. I'm not going to prejudge the outcome of that at this stage. In regard to continuing healthcare, there's a national debate in regard to that, and the Department for Health and Social Care have started a research piece of work around how continuing healthcare manifests itself in different areas. And we were actually the pilot conversation for a social services department with the DHSC team that's leading on that. They'll also be talking to the ICB as well. It's all a bit up in the air because of the national announcements that there have been in regard to NHS England. Also, the requirement that ICBs downsize their operating costs by 50%. So that's huge. There's going to be big stuff happening in the NHS, and in the context of the NHS and social services in the future, we're feeding in, as Councillor Francis said at the beginning of the meeting, we're feeding into the precursor discussions around the big review that's happening of social care, but that's not going to feed back until 2028, which is a bit too late for our needs. We need it to be happening sooner than that, but we are taking an active part in it all. So locally and nationally, yes, there's a lot going on. Happy to update more if anybody wants to.
Pete, do you want to continue, or have you done?
Thank you, Chair. No, I've pretty much done. I just would also draw your colleagues' attention to the last page of Appendix 2. There are 3 measures of success there that fall outside of the Director of Adult and Communities aegis, but they're all doing incredibly well. Thank you, Chair.
You're welcome, Pete. Has anybody else got any more questions in relation to this? Yeah, absolutely. Hugh?
Can I say, and I ought to say it, and I said it last time, but thanks to Pete, this the method by which we're seeing this now is so much vastly better this year in recent quarters than it has been previously, and at a glance, members can actually look at it and see the nature of progress. There's always more that we can report on, and there's good reasons to report on things other than just fulfilling the requirement to report on national indicators or, their local equivalents. And I think, one thing the CQC were very pleased about, I think it's right to say, isn't it, Pete, is that we are actually weaving performance information, finance information, audit information, etc., into our everyday activity, so that our activity, our practice is informed by data, and that is something we can only improve on.
Yeah, and I think that as we move forward into the next year, so 25-26, that I'm sure this will happen, but that we as a committee can clearly see the spending, which is going to make us understand where we're going, because I think that was something that we didn't necessarily know at the beginning of June 24, but now we know the direction of the budget and where spend is going. So that would be really helpful for all of us, so that we're not fighting for the budget, that we're working cohesively together around the budget. That's my dream. Okay, so let's move forward so that we can conclude. So the performance against, that the committee notes, the performance against the business plan relevant to this committee, including the issues raised and the measures to address performance issues to be implemented by relevant services. So just need you to note the report. Noted. Fabulous. And thank everyone for... No, I'm not going to thank everyone for coming today. I'm going to ask Councillor Y for his final point.
Yeah, sorry, I just had a bit of a reflection from this meeting that I thought was worth mentioning. It was, Hugh said that this committee has raised the profile of social care, which I think is true. And also you said how disappointing it was there wasn't more people in public forum. And I am surprised that there aren't carers group, and David Smallacombe's not here, about the price increase. I just wondered what we could do to kind of up it a bit. I mean, certainly we've been thinking about that in health scrutiny, and we're specifically, between me and the Bronwyn's equivalent for health scrutiny, approaching groups who we think are specifically interested in the agenda and encouraging them to come. I just wonder if we could give some thought to how we improve that absence, really.
Well, I can say that I am visiting organisations, and organisations know, and I'm constantly arranging visits to go to different organisations so that I can do just that, which is to raise the profile of adult social care and engage in discussions. I'm going to St Monica's Trust to sit on a panel this Thursday. Calvin and I, even though I'm double booked, are going to Wessel, or at least having a conversation with Wessel, and that is continuing. My diary is getting filled up as we go, so that will hopefully help to sort of raise the profile, spread the word about how members can make comments or attend. So yeah, I think it's because it's just one of those committees at the moment that people probably don't think they need to come to. Tom? Yeah.
I was just going to say I've had a very lively discussion with 100+ providers, yes, and specifically mentioned this forum and their entitlement to come, yeah, and to hear the discussion and to have a say. So I think on this occasion with the inflation, I think providers, A, recognise the position of this council financially, and B, recognise that nationally councils have been in a similar position. So it's not a lack of interest, there's huge interest. I guess it was a kind of acceptance that what's going to happen today was likely to happen today.
Yeah, my comments weren't a criticism. I encourage people as well to come with individual bits caseload, and they don't. But I just think it's a shame, and it's good to hear we're jivvying it up, and
maybe they think we're doing a great job and they don't need to come. Okay, that's the positives. So thank you everyone for coming today. And the next meeting of Adult Social Care is Monday, the 12th of May. So hopefully see you all then. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.